So hello and welcome back to episode 4 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge with myself, Barry Doyle and Andrew Blair-White. Andrew, we're back for a 4th week on the road to Cheltenham. What was your performance of the weekend?
Well, geez, there was some good racing. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see much of the John Durkin, so we can't really comment on Min's performance. It was great to see him win that race again. Shaq and Porcua was so impressive down in Cork. But I'd probably give it to Mick Winter's horse down in Cork, Sace Gold. I think she's a real proper mare. It's great to see Mick with a good horse back in her hands. I know an awful lot probably of our English viewers can't understand a word of what Mick Winters is saying in his interviews. But he's got a good horse there. Look, she's a real nice one. I don't know whether they'll go Cheltenham this year, whether or not. Maybe if she was to, she'd probably run in the Bartlett with the mare's allowance. But she's one to keep the right side of, definitely. Also one that if he was to win once or twice more again, you might see him in a county hurdle. Is a horse called 50 Ball for Gary Moore, one with stacks in hand over in Sandown on Saturday. He's the type of horse that may sneak into one of the handicaps.
Andrew, I suppose Shaq and Porcua, why didn't I get on it last week? You took 5-1. The Hillyway, look, I saw a lot of people saying he wasn't that impressive. I think he shortened up at the third last. He was short again for the second last. But the week came back on the bride like a good horse. I mean, they went a fair gallop, in fairness, on heavy ground. And I think you're in a comfortable position of 5-1, I have to say, for the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Obviously, myself and yourself are big Shaq and Porcua. But I thought it was as good a return, especially given his run at Cheltenham last year, or sorry, at Leopardstown at Christmas last year. He seemed to improve for his run last year, and I thought you'd have to be very impressed with him this weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. Now, as you did just say there, we're both big fans of him, but I thought he couldn't have been more impressive. I couldn't believe people trying to crab that performance. He was beaten at Christmas last year by Absolute Tar. He comes on bags for that first run out. That's always been the case with him. I'd say he was 65, 70%.
70% right, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I'd say it'd be 90% right now for the race at Christmas and 100% for February and March. I thought it was really good. This horse is a super jumper. I know he as you alluded to there, he shortened into 3 out, but God, he's a lovely jumper. He's absolutely pinged the fences down the back, and they were going a good gallop. You know, Jingle is no slouch from that regard. Cashback's obviously a free front runner in his own right, and it's good to see that the horse can jump with such fluency, I think, at that championship gallop, because that's something that I thought would catch Deafy Desoy out last year, and it ended up doing so. Especially with what happened over in the Tingle Creek as well. You'd have to be very confident with Shaq and Porcua if he was to get to Cheltenham, you know, fit and sound, which I suppose is an if. He's going to take an awful lot of stopping.
I think people are probably making a bit much of that. I mean, was it a stone bruise on the day last year? Wasn't it as if he broke down or anything like that? He obviously got to Cheltenham in one piece. So, you know, I think people he's made a glass kind of statements about Shaq and Porcua. Yeah, he had a couple of seasons where I think he won a beginner's chase as a 7-year-old, am I right? Around Naas.
Yeah,
and you know, to come on then and win at Punchestown like he did, we always knew he was going to develop. I think this year is Cheltenham 2021 is his year. I can't see anything to touch him. I think if he gets there.
I think people as well need to understand that from his perspective. He went over to Willie Mullins. He was obviously quite tricky to get fit initially and picked up a few injuries. But in the last year and a half, from that beginner's debut at Naas, which I was actually there, which was, I think, February of his novice career, he's been sound bar a stone bruise on the day of the champion chase for now 2 years on the trot. Like, I see Lydia Hislop on Racing TV constantly banging on about how much he's made a class and you couldn't touch him for a champion chase. I think he's the best horse in the division by a stone.
Before we come on to Lydia, because we will have something to say about Lydia, Autonomous Cloud is just a one I wanted to mention, Andrew, because there was a couple of horses taken out of that bumper at Friday in Exeter. the Tizard horses aren't going wonderful. Let's be honest about it. When we Colin on the podcast, he did mention a horse to keep an eye on, which was Autonomous Cloud. It's owned by Terry Warner, so the Gumball colours, and obviously has a share in Eldorado Allen as well. I thought he was very impressive. Look at that. He didn't go away. Like, we've seen some nice bumper winners in Ireland and in England. Kilcroot is one we might talk about in a while. Sir Gerhard up the north in Downright, but this was a kind of a different type of performance. He travelled up on the Brides, only a 4-year-old, by Flemonsford, beautifully bred horse. Travelled up. I'm not sure how good the bumper was really, but it was the fashion of how easily he got to the front. And you like to see a horse when he hits the front doing absolutely not a tap. You love your Envoy Allens. You love that sort of horse, Andrew. That's not your flash Sir Gerhard going away taking 20 pulls around the bend. I thought it was a very nice performance. I think there could be a stone or two improvement in this horse. And Tizard isn't notorious for his bumper horses. I don't think he runs too many in bumpers. And I'd just be one I would definitely say this horse has a lot of improvement in him. And whether he's champion bumper class, I'm not sure yet, but definitely he's one. Wherever he lines up again, I think there's a lot of improvement from this horse. Robbie Power obviously rode it at Exeter on last Friday. Definitely one for the notebooks. That's Autonomous Cloud. Now, Lydia Hislop, you mentioned the Altior situation. We must discuss it. I'll give you the floor first. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a very tricky situation. I thought it was a very interesting interview. I think Lydia was in her right to ask maybe the questions that other journalists maybe would have been afraid to ask. I know it was maybe a bit of an uncomfortable watch for some, but look, I know Ronan spoke to us about being quite passionately that there was no excuse really for Altior not to run. I'd somewhat agree with them. I think they're just minding him an awful lot these days. And my thoughts on it is that they're minding him because he's not as good as he was. I think he obviously isn't quite showing the same as he used to, because they wouldn't be swerving these sort of races 2 years ago. He beat Undersow in heavy ground in a Tingle Creek. Undersow, one of the best 2-mile heavy ground horses we've seen. So I just don't think he's as good as he was, and I don't think there's really any chance of him winning a champion chase, even if they get there. I think the wheels are maybe slightly beginning to fall off at his age.
Yeah, I think the first thing you said was Lydia is entitled to ask the question. She is. She's obviously a very brave journalist taking on Nicky Henderson. I just think the whole thing that's been made about this, at the end of the day, the owners pay the bills. The owners, if we didn't have owners, we wouldn't have a sport. And you might argue if we didn't have the punter. But the punters can't have it all their own way all the time, Andrew. I mean, Nicky Henderson, I thought Lydia is a very dangerous thing. Even what she said to Nicky was it's dangerous when you use the word heavy ground and welfare of horses in the same sense. To me now, that's a complete exaggeration. Is that putting words in someone's mouth? I mean, if Nicky Henderson wants to take the horse out, surely he's entitled to. To be honest, the one thing I would say about Nicky Henderson is he's one of the most open. He's a breath of fresh air for the industry. He's always been very, very fair. He gives so many interviews. He is quite bullish about his horses. We know that. But would Lydia have been asking the same questions? Is she going to stand outside Tramore with her microphone on New Year's Day when Album Photo takes to have his only run? Is Willie Mullins going to get the same treatment as Nicky? I thought it was very fair. He stood up, he answered the questions, and Lydia was entitled to ask them. But I think there's a whole hullabaloo about this, and at the end of the day, the owners pay the bills. It's completely Nicky Henderson's decision. We can't always be entitled to get exactly what we want. Lydia's entitled to ask the question, but I thought there was a lot made of it, and it's completely, in my opinion, the trainer's decision or owner's decision whether they want to run the horse. I feel very strongly about that. So Ronan might come on now on Thursday and give me a bit of grief over this, but that's my views on it. When we're with Nicky Henderson, we might as well talk Santini, because my God, this thing is slow.
Yeah, well, we said that last year that this horse was extremely slow. He needs. I don't know what he needs actually. He's just a monkey completely. That race, unfortunately, was a little bit of a farce. Again, it was another one that an awful lot was made of it. I saw on Twitter and stuff like that, the 3 mile bumper and stuff like that. They still jumped 11 fences or something. Like it wasn't a complete and utter farce. But I think if those 3 fences in the home straight were there, I don't think Lakeview Lad would have won.
Almankind and the King Henry VIII. Were you impressed, or did the race kind of fall apart a little bit? I mean, I don't think Eldorado. You liked Eldorado, Alan, going into the race as well. Big disappointment. Obviously, we flagged him up on Thursday's podcast. He never raised the gallop. There must have been something up. I don't think he's that slow. I don't think he was run off his feet like some people suggested. He never raised the gallop whatsoever. Almankind, thoughts on the winner, I suppose, and the race as a whole?
Yeah, look, I'd be with you there. Eldorado Allen was beaten, I'd say, after 2-3 fences. And I don't think that's just from a lack of speed. He showed plenty of tactical speed at Cheltenham behind Gumball. So I don't know, maybe just the fences at Sandown or something wasn't quite right. Tizard's horses, as you mentioned earlier, some have been running okay, some of them have been running very below par. So look, I see an awful lot being made of this Almankind. I can't take to him at all. And I was all over him for the Triumph last year, actually, because I was really impressed with him at Shepstow and stuff like that, but he let me down in the Triumph Hurdle, and he's going to let an awful lot of people down in the Arkle, I believe. I don't think there's a chance in hell he touches Shishkin. I don't think he's actually got a chance in hell of touching some of Willie Mullins' 2 milers either.
An argument.
Well, an Ergamine, Black Bow, these are good horses, and I don't know. I don't think beating two other 4-year-olds in second and third. I just don't think the form is as good as it is, and it's already been proven that he's been good early in a season. It's battle over Doyle stuff. He's been good early in a season, and when the cream comes to the crop in March time, he won't be good enough.
The more I look at these novice chases at Cheltenham, I mean, Siskin, Envoy Allen, Monkfish. I'm looking at those markets and thinking, how the hell are we going to get any of them beat? Willie Mullins obviously has a lot of unexposed novice chasers. We know he's well stocked. Where I was interested, actually, just listened to Ruby Walsh last week, speaking about an Erganim. He did mention that maybe the Faheen chase at Limerick on we know that the conditions down there is probably going to be on the softer side as well. It's over 2 mile 3. So is that an indication maybe that he might be maybe going Marsh? That's what I was thoughts on that. But
I think I'd see his horse in the Marsh more than I'd see him in the Arkle personally, because they've got Unaccepted and Black Bow potentially, and maybe even Classical Dream if he was to appear. That would be 2 milers. So you'd think that's the route they'd go down. The only I've heard them talking about that race with him, but I've also heard them talking about Asterion Forlange for that race as well. Obviously, I think he might just be campaigned right-handed this year. So I don't know which one would run, or maybe both of them would run.
It'll all develop, I suppose. But definitely in Erganim, he did really impress me. As you know, I'm a big fan of him. Andrew, I suppose anything else that you want to mention, just performances from this weekend before we come on to this week's selections?
No, I think that, as I say, that 50 ball at Sandown is one to look forward to in kind of big handicaps over 2 miles in England.
Before we come on to this week, let's just give an update of our selections so far. I suppose myself personally, Eldorado Allen for the Arkle chase, very disappointing. 20 to 1. I see you laughing, Andrew. Look, it wasn't him. We spoke about getting Siskin beaten. It looks like Willie Mullins is the only chance there at this stage. He will have to come out and obviously do a lot better. Other selections, Mac Fabulous, that obviously didn't end so well. It's not looking good, but appreciated, Andrew, for myself, was back this week from 12 to 1 as we put up on last week's show. He's as big as, I think he's only as big as 6 to 1 now, I think, for the Ballymore. So I'm not sure what developed there, but I did notice a market move on that. And you might want to tell the guys your selection so far.
Yeah, so I've got Nassalam at 25 to 1 for the Triumph Hurdle. He runs actually tomorrow at Fontwell in another juvenile hurdle, so very interesting to see how he goes. I must say I'm very scared of that Zanahiyr that ran for Gordon Elliott last week at Fairyhouse, but hopefully if he wins again, he probably will be cut in the market again. Wide receiver 25 to 1 any race. I have a feeling he could be the Martin Pipe horse for Gordon Elliott. It's a bit of a punt, but it's a good price. and Shaq and Porcua 5-1 for the champion chase, which now looks juicy enough, and I'm happy with trying to get one on the board with him.
Are you sorry you didn't go for the wild card on the Shaq and Porcua?
A little bit, but I was actually struggling so much to even get one selection last week that I just had to take the 1 point.
Yeah, look, I think there's plenty of time left. I only have 2 wild cards. Of course, I failed to mention She Wears It Well, which had a bit of a setback before the Royal Bond. Not sure. There's been nothing reported since. Fingers crossed she's well, and she's 6-1. That was my first wild card selection. But coming on to this week's selection, Andrew Blair-White, drum roll.
Yeah, well, look, we've been talking an awful lot about novice chasers, and I do think Shishkin and MYN look fairly bomb-proof, and you could easily make the argument that Monkfish is pretty bomb-proof. But I'm going to get one of my favourites in the team, and it's latest exhibition at 16-1. I look at the RSA betting. There's an awful lot of these horses not going to run. You look at the top 15 in the RSA betting. I reckon 4 or 5 of them turn up. You know, you've got Chantry House, don't think he'll run, and Ergomain won't run, Fury Road won't run, LeBerry won't run, Black Bow's there, Galaw's there. They're just not all going to run. Monkfish is a big danger. The big breakaway, I couldn't have him at all, even before Exeter and certainly after Exeter. The big getaway looked, I know he'll come on an awful lot for that, but he didn't look very inspiring on the weekend. And look, I think this horse has got a solid enough chance. He'll more than likely run in the 3 mile grade 1 at Christmas. That'll probably tell us more. But you can't be afraid of one horse. You don't know what might happen to Monkfish. He may pick up a setback. The race becomes more open as a result. And 16-1, I think it's a solid. It's a solid bet. I would say we're up against it against Monkfish, but as I say, you can't be afraid of just one horse.
No, I was in 2 minds this week, Andrew Blair-White, because short-term bias can affect us sometimes. I must talk, this isn't my selection, by the way, but there was one I was very, very close about putting up this week, and I have my eyes on him. Kilcroot in the bumper.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I suppose there's a lot to happen. There's lots of horses still to come out. He's on my radar. I'm not going to put him up. I can't remember the last time I've seen a horse hit the line as hard in a bumper at Navan. It's just the fact that it is the champion bumper. There's a lot to play for. He's best priced there, 12-1. Whether it'll be that, I might put him in next week. I'm hovering over the mouse on Kilcroot, but I'm not going to put him up because I do like. Listen, the 2 that we already spoke about on this series, Sir Gerhard. Obviously, he's a short price now. He looked absolutely mighty, and the strength of this race, it could be quite good. The Irish bumper horses could be good this year. The horse that you like as well of Gavin Cromwell's. Let's be clear about it.
Yeah,
he looks pretty good as well, but I think in the next couple of weeks we need to get points on the board. We need to play smart here, and I'm looking at the Gold Cup market. And there's nothing. I suppose I was looking at Goshen again this weekend. I just can't be playing him at this stage. I'm going to the Gold Cup market. Album Photo. You could make an argument actually. He's a bit of value here at 6-1. Sorry, best price. I'm going down to the field here. Manila Endo 8-1. Santini absolutely not a hope in hell. Presenting Percy. Lost in Translation. He was my goal. There was 2 horses that I flagged up that I was interested in this season on the season preview. It was Lost in Translation and Top of the Game. Top of the Game is sadly out of the Gold Cup. From a Nichols point of view, Frodon isn't probably going to run. Surname won't get the 3 mile 2. I don't care what you say. So you can take Nichols, I think, out of the equation here. Presenting Percy, just if he hasn't won one before now, I don't think the trade. I just landed. There's only one horse I think that represents value in this market at the moment, apart from maybe the current winner, Album Photo. And we're going to see him at Christmas. We're going to see him at Leopardstown. And this is not a PR stunt. I'm not putting him up because of his name. It's Champ. You're in disgust probably with this. His jumping, a lot has been talked about his jumping, Andrew. And the more you look back at the RSA chase last year, Henderson has come out and said, like, what? First of all, was the ground in his favour last year at Cheltenham? Like, there's an argument. He's by King's Theatre. There's an argument to say he's going to be better on better ground. If you look at the way he was ridden last year, his jumping isn't as bad as you might think. He's low at his fences. He's efficient. He did hit 1 or 2 and he did shorten it. He's not your typical, 2.5 mile horse that absolutely pings fences. I don't think you really need that in a Gold Cup. This horse is a serious engine. I think we all know that. He's going to Leopardstown at Christmas and he's had a breathing operation. Now, Henderson did say, and it was interesting listening to Barry Geraghty on a piece, that was that the reason why he hit his flat spot in the RSA last year? It was a good race. It went a good clip. You know, Manila Endo is half the price now, nearly a champ, and we've only seen him twice, and we've seen him in 2 Mickey Mouse races in Ireland. I think he's the only horse, in my opinion, that has a real good chance of winning at I suppose, a backable price now at this stage. And I'm putting him in the team at 12-1. And the one other thing I would say about Champ is, obviously, he was in that RSA chase. He went the widest route the whole way around. Like the widest route, literally. Did he go out there for a bit of better ground on the day? You know, he met up, obviously, we know what happened in the end. I'm going to get him in the team. He's 12-1, 1 point on Champ for the Gold Cup. I can't believe I've warmed to this horse, but there's nothing else in here.
You made a very good case. Also, people have to realise that Albin Photo's not even that good a jumper, and I'm Albin Photo's biggest fan, and yet, geez, he'd raise your hair looking at him jump fences as well. So Champ's got the engine for it. I won't put you off him. I do see your angle, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Andrew, that concludes, I suppose, episode 4 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. There's been a great response, Andrew, to this show.
Yeah, it's been great. Fantastic to see so many people in the comments getting to grips with it every week with a new selection. We go through all the selections down below, and hopefully we might get a prize for the big winner of the Ante-Post King crown at the end of the season.
Actually, just a particular mention to one of the guys who's getting involved below, Brian Walker from the West Midlands. What an interesting book this is. Tyne Hill, 12-1 taken for the Stayers, week 1. Manila Endo, 8-1, I think is the shortest, maybe 6 now. Bob Olin, Ballymore, 20-1. And Epatante at 7-2. That's a nice little book now, that.
You better be a Villa fan from the West Midlands now.
He's probably the Brummies, the Zulus, as they call them. Andrew Blair-White, that concludes, I suppose, episode 4, and we'll be back next week. We'll be back on Thursday as well for the podcast, and sure, we'll chat to you then.